And just drop into that stillness more and more. We'll see with non-duality, we're not creating anything, we're just have a natural letting go, unfolding, allowing. Breath is nice. If you have a mantra, mantras are nice. We'll talk about the value of observing. Open-eyed meditation, just observing without labeling, with your eyes closed, observing the breath, sounds, feelings. That's one of the best things we can take away from today is the power of resting in that observer space. It's overlooked, and it's extremely powerful. Is that going? Okay. I've got a lingering cold. See how the voice does, but anyway, that's part of what's happening. So welcome to Yoga Church. Good to have you here. We're usually Sundays at 10 a.m. at Sweetest Little Life. You want to come in the future? 10 a.m. at Sweetest Little Life on Sundays. And this morning we're kicking off retreat day of our Sweet Reset here. I'm really thankful for this opportunity to be able to share the teaching some and help us start off this retreat day in a deeper space of more awareness and presence, quieter mind, and to see that non-duality brings us into a space of equanimity, so we're in the presence of what's unfolding. And we can really be there with whatever's happening. So as these things are happening today, it'll be good to take this forward into that and then take this forward into your day-to-day living. Non-duality isn't just something to do when you're meditating or something. This is a day-to-day, moment-to-moment, as we live our lives, sort of teaching to be there. Non-duality is talks about not to. It comes from Advaita Vedanta. This is an ancient teaching. There's people realizing this spontaneously around the world throughout time, and it's been around in all of these ancient teachings. Shows up in all the different religions. It doesn't have any association anywhere in particular, but it's definitely in a lot of Hinduism, Indian philosophy and understanding of the nature of the world. It's a different way of seeing things. The questions can happen, and we can talk about those questions. You can also let the questions resonate within yourself. And part of non-duality is that the absolute is here permeating everything. Just like there There might be a gold ring and a gold necklace and a gold bracelet, but it's all gold behind it all. And that's what non-duality is saying, that it's all the absolute behind it all. So if we have a question, that absolute is not separate from you. It's there answering it in a million possible different ways. But also questions are fine here, and questions are fine in yoga church as well. So Advaita Vedanta, it means, Advaita translates into not two. It's just that one. So it's pointing out that oneness behind everything. And Vedanta just means the teaching. So it's the teaching of not one or only one. Not two, the teaching of not two, only one. In the yoga traditions, yoga means union. It comes from yoke and bringing together, and it's bringing together that personal with the divine. There's bhakti yoga, where it's a yoga of devotion. And there's karma yoga, where it's selfless service, and I'm giving myself. I'm not serving myself, I'm serving the other, and really I'm serving God in the other, God in the world. So it's a form of unselfing, and this is another form of unselfing, and just realizing that divine. In Advaita Vedanta, or non-duality, is jnana yoga, or yoga of knowledge. It's called the direct path also because it directly points to the point of suffering. It directly points to what's real and what's not real. And then we, as practitioners or seekers, we look to those pointings, what is real and what is unreal, and we discover within ourselves. So just having a thought of all is one is nice, but when you're experiencing it, that's where the teaching is taking us, so that we're seeing that all is the absolute. And again, it's not a belief in the end, it's a realization that we have within ourselves. Ramana Maharshi, who I'm going to be sharing some quotes of here today, one of the great non-dual teachers of modern times, highest order. He realized as a child, he had a death experience coming over him. He was totally healthy, but he felt like he was dying. It's like, oh my gosh. And instead of like going and telling his family members or whatever, he decided to lie down on the floor and investigate this dying he was feeling. And when he investigated that, the absolute just came upon him deeply. Within weeks, he left his home and he didn't tell his family where he was going. And he went to this mountain that he stayed at for the rest of his life. Eventually started teaching, and people were getting these teachings, but his main question, and he told people to ask, who am I? This is called self-inquiry. I'm a big part of non-duality. So we're checking with ourselves, even though it's the yoga of knowledge and information. There's nothing to remember. We just take these pointers and then we use them to check for ourselves. The realization is non-conceptual. How do I talk about the aliveness in this moment? So if I just feel the aliveness in this moment, I feel maybe there's a vibration, but that's a term, a concept, a thought. Maybe there's other sensations, but again, once you start describing it, we're in the land of thoughts and terms and concepts. We want to see what's behind that. That's where we're going here with non-duality, the direct path. I'm going to start by talking about the deepest, ultimate realization of non-duality, and that's all is God. It might be hard to know that directly until a lot of the veil is pulled away. So we talk about the veil. There's a misunderstanding that we're living within, and this veil is covering up the realization that all is God. When we do namaste, it's, the God in me recognizes the God in you. But how much are we really seeing that and feeling that? But this is the ultimate realization that we come to when the veil gets pulled away. And then so what we do is we kind of point at what is veiling that understanding that all is God. I want to take a moment and talk about what God means, because we have a lot of different feelings of what God means. It's not some parent figure, at least in non-duality, it's not some parent figure that's rewarding for positive actions and punishing for negative actions. It lives in a cloud somewhere or something like that. We talk about it as a, impersonal God. It's not an individual entity or something like that. It's flowing throughout all of creation. It's actually there before, and it gives rise to what we experience, to all manifestation, and then it's there taking away whatever has appeared, and it's supporting throughout. This is what's meant by God, and that is behind everything. Just like that gold and the necklace and the jewelry is behind everything, God is behind everything. That really starts to be the experience. And then bhakti yoga, honoring everything, seeing God in everything. Karma yoga, serving God. It just becomes all very natural. And this understanding, you can see how that would transform a life, of course. But we're going to look towards these misunderstandings. I want to share a Ramana quote. So he says, all that is necessary is to give up the mistaken identity, and that done, that ever-shining self will be seen as the single non-dual reality. He said all that is necessary. We can do other things, it's fine. There's this amazing power in giving up this mistaken identity. And so how we're going to approach that giving up of that mistaken identity is we're going to talk about what these mistaken identities are, and what the true identity is. And we're going to kind of investigate that. And mistaken identity is created by God as well. Not a problem, created by God as well. But we're here today sharing, and there's an opportunity to look into the nature of that mistaken identity. So this is the false belief. Are you ready? So this is the false belief we're going to investigate first. And that it's that I'm this body mind, or I'm this person. Yeah. Is that a reasonable thing to believe? So we all, yeah, this is me, right? That's how life has taught us, and that's how society has taught us. And it's through generations, through cultures, there's the individual bodies. And then I'm saying, but there's actually God, and it's not just me throughout time. People realizing and saying this throughout time. There's more than that. So, we talked about the observing nature earlier, and I'm going to use the word awareness to point for that right now. So awareness, and let's investigate awareness together a little bit right now. Awareness. So I want to do it with the sense perceptions first. They're so powerful, and we really get tied up in them. We take identity from our sense perceptions very deeply. So let's let's look into this a little bit. And first, so with our eyes open, we can look around the room, and there's so much information coming in. And so we're perceiving all this. And before we do labelings, we're just going to observe without labeling happening. And we're aware of what is seen. So there's awareness of what is seen. And the awareness happens effortlessly. We notice and recognize that the awareness happens effortlessly. You don't have to try to be aware of it. It's happening effortlessly. So there's awareness of what is seen. And then we can close our eyes and so kind of cancel out all that information that comes in through the eyes. And there's sound. So let's go to the sound sense, or the sense of hearing. And as I hear, we can hear these words. We can hear other words happening, other sounds. And there's an awareness of those words and sounds. And is it a different awareness? Is there like a hearing awareness versus a seeing awareness? Or is there one awareness? Is it a different awareness? Is there a hearing awareness and a seeing awareness? Or is it all landing in that same awareness? Let's go to the feeling awareness. So we feel like our body's against the floors. We feel it's hot or cold in here. You can feel the breath coming in, leaving, chest expanding, contracting. We're aware of that. There's an awareness of all that. Is it a different awareness? Or is it just one awareness that is aware of all that? And then similarly, they're a little bit quieter, these senses, the sense of smell and the sense of taste. Sense of taste comes alive and we're eating more, and sense of smell maybe in different situations. But so different senses, and there's this awareness of that sense perception. But it's just one awareness. And that one awareness is constantly living. When in the Eastern traditions, and Natalia and I were recently watching something about I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was the Egyptians, and they talked about the inner sense of thought. And just like in Hinduism, they have the inner sense of thought. So there's not just the outer five senses, but there's also the senses of the inner world. So the thoughts and emotions, and being aware of that. So we can be aware of thoughts, and this is very powerful. And this being aware of thoughts can transform a life for sure. Because thoughts take us in such crazy directions. But the more that we can be aware, that's just a thought. And that we don't end up identifying with it. Transformational. So coming into this awareness space. One other thing about this awareness space I want to share, and for us all to investigate, is how, so we saw that it's one awareness, and also how from day to day, see if that awareness changes the nature of the awareness. So the thoughts rise and fall, and the feelings rise and fall, and the sense perceptions rise and fall. But the awareness is there constantly throughout it. It sees the rising and it sees the falling. There's one awareness throughout it all, and it's unchanged by life. So as life comes, we'll talk a fair amount about life coming. This is important. It's not just, again, to be done in meditation. This is to be done throughout our lives, day to day. And as life comes, is the awareness of those experiences changing? So the experiences are for sure going to be changing, rising and falling, but did the awareness change at all? What I'm saying is that the awareness has been the same throughout the life. All these things have been changing, but there's one awareness throughout it all. This is why it's called that golden thread to that absolute understanding, because that awareness is constantly there throughout it all. Everybody has access to it. Was somebody not aware? Anyways, there's awareness throughout it all, right? We can't avoid it. It's even there in the dream state. Is it a different awareness that's there in the dream state? One awareness throughout it all, even in the dream state. Untouched by circumstances. I'm even going to say locationless. Our belief system, because the senses are in the body, and the memory is in the body, and the thoughts are associated with the body, we put awareness in the body. It's understandable. It's an understandable belief. But let's check and see how locationless it actually is. And really, is there any reason to believe that the awareness that's shining through this is different from the awareness that's shining through that and that and that and that? Yeah, I can't. There's no reason to say that. So, locationless, untouched by life, always there, always the same. If you can meet today's retreat experiences and teachings from this space of awareness, and then go out into life from this space of awareness, I promise a life is transformed. We've tapped into the non-dual reality that's behind everything. And also, just to give a moment to talk a little bit more about the nature of thoughts. So, thoughts can be like an inner monologue. These are thoughts. So we're meditating or whatever, or we're driving down the road and there's these like thoughts that start, or maybe it feels like a dialogue. Hey, what should I do today? Oh, I think I'm going to do this. That's all thought, right? And all concepts and all labeling. This is a microphone. That's a thought. All concepts, all beliefs. All beliefs are thoughts. What we're pointing to, it's fine to have beliefs, but what we're pointing to here is what's beyond the beliefs, what's beyond the thoughts. That's what we're trying to get closer to. I haven't talked a lot about the suffering part of the story today, but we'll get there. And thoughts. Yeah. One thing that happens, so there's this awareness, I'm going to call this the impersonal witnessing presence. So there's this impersonal witnessing presence here. And as we start checking in with that more and more, and we start meeting life as life comes to us from this impersonal witnessing presence more and more, we start seeing thoughts more and more. And they call it a wedge that's kind of put between who I am and the thoughts. So instead of that's my thoughts, this is how I believe, all of that just gets kind of loosened up. How we interact with others is transformed as we loosen this tightness around thoughts, and as we loosen this tightness again about me being a body mind. And so let's go back a little bit more to identity. And is that impersonal witnessing presence, that awareness, is that not more of who your day-to-day experience is than anything else? That impersonal witnessing presence, that not more the core, the center of our lives? So let's hang out with that some more and take it into our daily living. Take it into your days today. Check in with it. We'll continue to talk about it at Yoga Church on Sundays. So next I want to talk about happiness. Happiness. And we have a false belief about happiness. I don't know how much it is in the West. I mean, in the East, I'm sure it's somewhat, but it's really strong here. And we think that our happiness comes from achieving desired outcomes. So we have what we prefer and we try to make that happen. And then we also have what we don't want, or aversions, and we try to minimize that. And we think a good life, and it's okay, we think a good life is I've maximized what I prefer and I've minimized what I don't like. That seems like a reasonable, that's kind of what we're taught. I'm going to maximize what I prefer and I'm going to minimize what I don't like. It's totally reasonable. And I think maybe that's what we're taught from childhood, that this is a happy life, to maximize what you prefer. But what we're going to talk about is suffering comes from attachment to outcomes. So what if you don't get what you preferred? What if you don't get what you tried to do? Am I going to be unhappy? And this is, so yes, I didn't get it, I'm sad. And something that I didn't want happened to me and I'm sad. But I want to say there's a happiness beyond that, and it's not just me. I'm going to pull up another Ramana quote here. He talked about happiness a lot. One of the first, so his picture, this deep stillness, is what a big part of what pulled me into this originally. I mean, I think the absolute pulls the life into this, but it brought me to this picture, and so I'm reading the books, and I remember reading this, maybe not exactly, but basically this teaching: happiness is your nature. It's not wrong to desire it. What is wrong is seeking it outside when it's inside. So happiness is your nature. So if what I want happens or not, there can be happiness there throughout. I mean, and really this is the space of the sage. The sage has realized that they're not actually in control of the outcomes. The feeling here that God is behind everything. And if what I want comes to me, thank you, thank you, thank you. And if what I didn't want comes to me, somehow that's a gift. I don't see how. It doesn't feel good. But I'm going to take that as a gift too. There's going to be an equanimity, a peace that lives throughout it all. And in that equanimity, in the not fighting the nature of the world, there's a deep peace that's going to happen. And in that deep peace, that's where the happiness lies. So it was really weird to read that, right? Grown up as a Westerner, happiness coming from outcomes. What are you talking about? It's part of our true nature. It's not just me, it's coming from many places. So we can realize this through this teaching for sure. This happiness, this equanimity, this contentment, this deep contentment, regardless of what comes my way, if it's what I prefer, what I don't, if my outcome is met or not, there's going to be this feeling of peace throughout. I want to take a moment and give Buddha some time. So a few days ago, on May 1st, the full moon, that full moon is a Buddha Purnima, and Purnima meaning a full moon, and there's different full moon celebrations throughout the that calendar, and this one that just happened was the one in celebration of Buddha. So Buddha's life, the birth, the awakening, the teachings, and then the passing. So celebrating all that just happened a couple of days ago. This great master from 2,500 years ago, he was born a prince, right? I don't know if you know the story, but born a prince, and his family trying to keep him away from suffering because they heard that he could be a great spiritual teacher, but they wanted him to be a great king. So they kept him away from suffering, and then, but life took him into that space, and he experienced it, and then he went on this quest to solve the puzzle of suffering. Practicing extreme asceticism, without food, without drink, without for years. Eventually realized the middle way, eventually woke up. And when he woke up, he gave us the Four Noble Truths. So part of, a main part of his teaching was these Four Noble Truths. And his first noble truth, you might have heard them, is life is suffering. So you realize life is suffering. This is a main part of life. Second noble truth, suffering is coming from these cravings, going for those desired outcomes, or that craving, and this pushing away. So cravings and aversions, this pushing and pulling is where suffering is coming from. I have a little bit different take on it, but it's all connected to that. And then the third noble truth was that there's freedom from suffering. This is nirvana. So we're not all stuck in it permanently. There's a freedom from it, and which he called nirvana. And then the fourth noble truth is his eightfold path to find that nirvana and to reach that peace. So we might have heard before Buddha saying life is suffering, the first noble truth. But I want to talk about the word that he used for suffering. So he was in India. Buddha was definitely in northeast India when all this unfolded, and speaking Sanskrit. And the word that was used for suffering is dukkha. And dukkha can be translated as suffering, but dukkha is also translated as resistance to the flow of life. Resistance to the flow of life. I think that's a much better pointer. So, because suffering, I don't know, some people suffer intensely, some people have light suffering. I'm not suffering now, I'm suffering. But is there resistance to the flow of life? Does anybody resist the flow of life? So, resistance to the flow of life for sure happens. Yeah. I think it's related to that happiness thing. I'm not getting what I want. I'm going to make it happen. And I actually think it's okay to try to make it happen. That's not where the problem is. The problem is I'm going to pin my happiness on it happening or not. And so it's okay to try to make things happen. If there's something that we don't feel good about, it's okay if I need to step out of the room or step out if I have that possibility. Whatever. If there's something that I want, it's fine to get it. But I'm not going to pin my happiness on achieving that. Resistance to the flow of life. Another teacher talks about it as an uncomfortableness with life. It's a great pointer too. Do I feel an uncomfortableness with life? I recently read a quote of Eckhart Tolle. So Eckhart Tolle, a great modern sage teaching non-duality, power of now, other wonderful teachings. And he said, you can go against what life is doing. It's fine, but you will suffer. This teacher who calls it the uncomfortableness, he also talked about life is like an avalanche. It's powerful. It's unavoidable. And then we're trying to stop the avalanche. It's not a thing, right? You can't stop it. So life is going to do what it's doing. I actually am going to have some faith that even though it doesn't feel good, when Eckhart Tolle woke up, he was in extreme suffering. For sure, before his waking up, he was saying, "This is awful." It was suicidal, right? Extreme suffering. So it was something like, "I can't take you anymore." This anxiety part, and this other part saying, "Who can't take what?" And there was this sense, looking into his sense identity in that moment, and then the freedom from it. But he had years of extreme suffering. But am I going to? I don't know. Was that a negative thing? I mean, it gave us one of our best modern teachers that we have. So it might feel like a negative thing in the moment, but I'm not in a place. I'm not in a place to judge it, and I'm in a place of actually trusting. Where, if it feels if that's not what I wanted, but okay, this is what life brought to this life. I'm going to be there for it. And I realize that suffering is resistance to the flow of life. Suffering is this uncomfortableness. Another teacher recently, who definitely has a more Buddhist way of looking at things than I do, he talked about it. He defined dukkha as unsatisfactoriness, not being satisfied with it. So, I don't know. Are we up for trying this out? It doesn't necessarily come the way we want it to come, but there's just going to be, okay, this is what came, and try to just be okay with it. We can try to change things, but if we don't get what we want, we're not going to pin our happiness on that. So, we have First Noble Truth, life is suffering, and we're going to feel that this uncomfortableness, and we're going to realize that that's part of, and then we're going to kind of just recognize this. And then, so we're not just going to take it as a belief, we're going to check and see, is that a source of suffering for us, this uncomfortableness with the flow of life? And then again, his craving and aversions, like the suffering coming from that, we're just going to feel. I think it's more in the outcomes being met or not, and it's not just me saying this; others before me. So we're going to say, if my outcomes aren't met, I'm not going to pin my happiness on that, and see how much peace that brings into our life. And we're going to come into something else that brings a lot of peace in a minute here. But then the third noble truth, nirvana. A word that goes in with that nirvana, we talked about dukkha being that uncomfortableness, and there's this other word called sukha. It's very related, and it's everything flowing perfectly. In sukha, they talk about sukha shanti, and you might have heard shanti, 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 peace, peace, peace. This is that true happiness that Ramana is talking about. He talked about your true nature is peace, just as much as he said your true nature is happiness. So that peace, peace, peace. Sukha shanti is this equanimity that's flowing throughout life. So this Buddha used this term too. So that nirvana being that at peace with the flow of life. At peace with the flow of life. So let's just try that out some in our lives and see if we're more at peace with the flow of life, if suffering diminishes. There's ultimately the possibility for it to disappear completely, but even a diminishing is nice. Yeah, so diminishing is nice. And then, so the fourth noble truth, the eightfold path, there were things like right thought and right action and these sorts of things. But I think with this non-dual understanding, a lot of that just happens naturally and spontaneously. We don't have to cultivate it. It happens naturally with the understanding. Mm-hmm. Okay, so one big part of being uncomfortable with life comes from a sense of doership. And this is big in the West. I'm in control of my life, right? And we talked about we're attaching happiness to our outcomes. And so I want this to be happy, and I'm in control of making that happen. Here, there's a feeling that life is happening how life is happening, and my peace is, I'm not going to pin my peace on that. But it's fine. I think this is how manifestation unfolds, by us acting how we act. But going into this doership part of the story, where do actions really come from? This can be very transformative. So, where do actions really come from? And what I'm going to say, and it's been said throughout time, ancient times to current times, that actions come from our nature. A little doer guy somewhere controlling things, I don't know. I've never seen it. Sages haven't seen it. So actions coming from our nature. And let's break this down a little bit more. To our nature, let's think of it as genetics and up-to-date conditioning. And then were we in control of any of that? So our genetics, were you in control of it? Parents came together, these bodies happened, there was no control over that. The socioeconomic status that we were born into, the parents that raised us, the family that raised us, the community that raised us, were we in control of any of that? No, we're not in control of any of that. And then we might start feeling, though, as you get a little bit older, that maybe you're in control of, like who I chose to be my friends, where I went to college after the fact, maybe. But where did these choices come from? So who I chose as a friend? Maybe I was a creative type, and I've gravitated towards creative types, and I didn't want to be around the athlete or the whatever the sciencey types, or whatever. And so it was my nature that led that choice. And then this friendship happened, and this conditioning happens, and whatever. We can go on and on and on and on, and all these things that look like they were our choice. We can check on this. The action happens, and the mind comes in after the fact, and it takes ownership of it. So an action happens from our nature, and then the mind says, I did that. You can check. So actions coming from this. And so how's that going to help us? So it's actually an enormous amount of psychological suffering that's attached to the belief in doership, of me being the doer and the other being the doer. And I'm going to do an example right now so I'm in a meeting at work, and there's 5 or 6 of us in the room, in this little meeting room, and there's one person that's verbally abusing another person, let's say. So this person's verbally abusing this person. And then one person is going to, maybe their nature will be to jump in and say, hey, lay off. You're not helping anything here. And another person might be like, oh, he doesn't mean it. So they're supporting this other person that's being abused, right? And then another person is sitting in there going, I'm not going to get involved in this whole thing. Right? So all of this is coming from everybody's nature, is an understanding that can happen. It feels like I'm choosing to do this, and it's really coming from our natures. And then, so if somebody with the understanding is there in the room, this doership, this lack of it being real, that abuser, that was coming from their nature. Their nature is genetics and up-to-date conditioning. So they don't have to be an abuser forever. You can still say something to them. They might change. But will they change for sure? They might not change, right? I'm not going to pin my happiness on that. And also, so somebody might just, I hate that person. I'm just not going to be around them at all. But maybe they're in your work with you and you can't really avoid them. Okay, that's their nature. I'm going to minimize but I'm not going to hate them. Also, maybe there's the person that's a little bit more shy and they see the person that jumped up and said something and I wish I was more like them. Why couldn't I have jumped up and said something? But if you realize that your nature wasn't that to just jump up and say something, you're more gentle on yourself. Shame and jealousy and blame, hatred. None of that lives in the understanding that actions comes from one's nature. And then if you're to interact with that person, I'm not going to sit and be a blaming towards that person. If I have the understanding, I'm not going to sit and be a blamer towards that person. I'm going to say, hey, I don't think that that's the best way to, if we're going to have a successful meeting here and get everything done that we need to, maybe that's not going to be the best way. But I'm not going to approach them from a space of blame. That's different, right? or a space of hatred and yelling, whatever could happen, massively transforms a life. There's this fun metaphor of kitchen appliances, and we have the Natalia and I talk about it a lot. We have the refrigerator, let's say, and the toaster and the blender, and they're all designed with their unique properties and things that they do, right? And so everybody here is all designed with unique properties and things that we do. Was it just random? Was it all designed in a random way? Or was there something behind it all the whole time? So the feeling is that there's God behind this. These are all instruments of the absolute that are designed to act the way they act. And what happens is, so this person should be a more kind person, we say. This is wanting the blender to be a toaster. This is the way they were designed. And this is the way you were designed. And so life really softens so much. And there's so much psychological suffering that's attached to not understanding that people's actions are coming from their nature. And I don't expect you to believe me totally right now. That would be magical, and maybe that would happen. But also, we can go out into the world, and as we get upset with somebody, we're just going to check. Maybe did that just come from their nature? I've been checking over and over and over for years. And it seems to be what's happening. On top of that, I just can't find a doer inside there. On top of that, there's been people throughout time who have been saying this. The Bhagavad Gita says the ego deluded believes itself to be the doer. These are ancient teachings. But we can say that I'm not the doer, but then once we really have checked over and over and over in life, we've seen it over and over in life. Awakening, you don't have to go to a cave in life, being in life and seeing this and understanding this in life, the teaching can really deepen in, we see over and over. We're meeting this from this witnessing presence, right? Not getting super involved, and we're observing, we're watching, we're seeing how life works. So much psychological suffering can get released through this. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't have a lot to say about that, but I do have something to say about that. So part of the metaphor is that there's one electricity behind all the appliances. Similarly here, there's that one energy behind everything. Ramana, he wasn't on board with the doership story for sure, and he would say he actually used that word electricity. There's that one electricity or one current, I think he called it a current actually, that is running this. Mm. So I'm feeling, so identity, yeah. The mistaken identity, to put it in a little bit bigger terms now after what we've shared here, is I am this body mind that's in control of my actions and the outcomes of those actions, and my happiness is dependent on those outcomes being met. Totally reasonable belief to have, given the culture that we're raised in, and if we haven't heard these teachings before. And then we can go in and we can check to see how real that is. We can check to see the nature of this witnessing presence that's been behind everything, how much we are that, and meet life with that, and check to see if we are really the doers, and check to see if our happiness is really needing to be attached to outcomes, or how much our suffering comes from our attachment to the outcomes. We can check. What's a different way of looking at things? What happens in the end when all this happens is that non-dual, that all is God, just starts being more and more of one's life. Suffering diminishes. Peace and equanimity is there behind life. We meet life coming to us from this witnessing presence without judgment, without labeling. We're totally capable of sitting in that meeting and being a participant in life. It doesn't make us not a participant. It makes us more present, more able to be there for what's happening, more able to be there for what actually is happening, not layering it with all of our feelings and everything. Transformative to life. I have a little bit of time. Would love for you to take all of this. I didn't. Maybe I just want to. I want to maybe say one thing about destiny. We've maybe said a little bit about it, but the unfolding. When doership falls away. So before we meet life this way, it's intense, and this is a very busy life. So there's a lot of things, puts in a lot of hours, a very busy life, and so there was a fair amount of doership for sure. But then as it starts to fall away, we start to see that life is just like taking care of life. Again, the feeling is that there's the absolute behind all of this, and it's all taking care of itself, and things working so perfectly over and over and over. Maybe not the way we planned, but working so perfectly over and over and over. And it feels, Ramana would say the same thing. I don't have that quote with me here today, but he said, regardless, so something is not destined to be. It doesn't matter how much you try to make it happen, it won't happen. And if something is destined to be, it doesn't matter how much you try to stop it from happening, but it will happen. So realizing that life is unfolding the way life is unfolding. And this is part of course, why we're not going to be interested in fighting it, but also just seeing the supportive nature of life behind everything. Why would I fight it? Am I really in a place with this simple mind and understanding? Am I really in a place of understanding why it's all happening the way it is? This predestination, this predetermination, like Einstein had feelings about this, Stephen Hawking had feelings about this. So this is like a physicist thing, we have the pool, I'm thinking of the pool table, and once that cue ball is hit towards whatever, those different billiard balls there, it's all going to unfold the way it unfolds. Life is unfolding the way it unfolds. And when doership falls away, of course, we're still acting from our nature, but we're just, we're a participant. The flute doesn't think that it played the song, right? The song was created, somebody blew air through it, and there was like listening to happenings, but the flute was part of it, yeah, an essential part of it. And all these bodies here, all these people are an essential part of it, but it's happening through, so life is happening through all of this. Okay, so I'm definitely happy to open it to any questions. And again, we have Yoga Church on Sundays at Sweetest Little Life, 10 a.m. Happy to spend more time, and Ramana loved to sit in stillness. I felt like I had to give like a little breakdown of the whole story, and I didn't hit everything I wanted to talk about, but sitting in stillness is really good. Asking questions is really good. Are there any questions? Is there any burning questions anybody wants to look into right now? Yeah. It is a lot. So it's a super different way of seeing the world, but super just enormously transformative, and suffering can diminish enormously in the way that we meet life, just in presence. Your meditation, Eckhart Tolle, so he, right, going crazy. I mean, really in extreme psychological suffering. He has the wake up one morning, I think it was. He woke up the next morning, he said, with 80% less thoughts. This just chops away at so much of the psychological suffering. And then when when the thoughts aren't going crazy the way they do, has anybody experienced that? So we try to meditate and the thoughts are going crazy. So this will diminish that. And then our intuitive nature also just we're feeling like life is, we're more there for it instead of being all involved in this thought reality. We're more present for what's happening. Just amazing and beautiful. There aren't questions happening right now. So do we know when we can meet again? Sundays at 10 o'clock in Sweetest Little Life. Love to have you there. Thank you for being here. Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Very child friendly there. I was going to say children are like almost always welcome. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here.